Hi, David Bean Cooley from TV Worth Watching, doing Best TV tomorrow. Tomorrow is Friday, March 12th. And I want to talk a little bit about my childhood when I got excited about film and TV. And there were films on TV that you would wait up for on the Late Show, or you would see in the afternoon, and you would scour the TV guide for months to try to see one that you hadn't seen before that you'd read about in a book. Or you'd go to colleges and to film little mini festivals and try to see things. And there were like 5 or 10 years where you couldn't see a Hitchcock film. You just kept going. And I do not think that the new generation knows how lucky it is. But it's not even streaming stuff. Tomorrow night on cable, on good old Turner Classic Movies, they're showing 3 films in a row, black and white, from 1941 or 1942, that if you had told me when I was 20 years old that I could see in a triple feature, it would have been not only the closest thing to sex I would have experienced then, but pretty much the first one. Look at Maltese Falcon, that's the first movie. Casablanca, that's the second movie. Citizen Kane, that's the third movie. All 3 of those movies are so great, I don't have to tell you anything about them, except there they are, all together.
It's no secret that Citizen Kane is regarded as one of the greatest films of all time. The film set the bar for what all cinema should strive towards, and serves as the highest compliment when it comes to comparison. For example, you often hear that Singin' in the Rain is the Citizen Kane of musicals, or that The Dark Knight is the Citizen Kane of comic book movies, and There Will Be Blood is the Citizen Kane of the 21st century. That means that these films are the best of the best. Citizen Kane was released in 1941, and almost 80 years later, the film still endures. Why is that? Is it just because it's that good? Well, partially, but the main reason for Citizen Kane's endurance is its overall influence on filmmaking. The influence of Citizen Kane on today's best filmmakers is obvious. Just look at some of these films that pay visual homage. Filmmakers like Quentin Tarantino, Martin Scorsese, Wes Anderson, and Steven Spielberg have all paid direct tribute to Citizen Kane with their own films. Making this film in the early 1940s, Orson Welles was doing things that were unheard of. For example, the film's non-linear narrative was groundbreaking during a time of simple storytelling. The structure of the film surely influenced other out-of-order stories down the road. But maybe more importantly, when he made Citizen Kane, Orson Welles was pioneering a visual aesthetic that was unlike anything in earlier cinema. Take lighting, for example. Any film aficionado knows that the director and the cinematographer work together to use light and shadows as a visual storytelling technique. This is largely thanks to Welles' work on Citizen Kane. Back then, most Hollywood films used light out of necessity. They needed to light the actors and sets in order to make them visible. Welles and his cinematographer Greg Toland used light to create meaning and to express a feeling. The tone created by the lighting in Citizen Kane heavily inspired subsequent film noir and even giant blockbusters decades later. Citizen Kane also helped pioneer deep-focus cinematography. When Citizen Kane was released during the classical Hollywood period, films were shot mostly with shallow focus. This means that the characters were in focus while the backgrounds were out of focus. This helps to draw the viewer's attention to the characters. Welles, on the other hand, wanted to keep everything in focus at once. In Citizen Kane, the mise-en-scène is just as important as the actors, and therefore he needed everything to be visible. Looking at the work of Stanley Kubrick, it's easy to see Citizen Kane's influence. Welles was also a visionary when it came to camera placement. During this classical period of reserved style, the camera was mostly an invisible spectator. Camera placement served the actors and didn't call attention to itself. Welles turned this idea on its ear when he made Citizen Kane. He offered the audience impossible viewpoints by placing the camera below the floor. Rather than reverse shot close-ups, Welles decided to use wide shots and long continuous takes. And rather than cutting to a different shot, Welles blocked his actors and moved the camera to create different shots within the same take. We've seen this type of filmmaking countless times and still see it frequently. But without Citizen Kane, nobody would be doing it. Watching Citizen Kane today, it doesn't seem like anything too out of the ordinary. We feel like we've pretty much seen it all before, and that's true, we have. And perhaps that's what makes the best case for the film's overwhelming influence on cinema.